Good morning, everybody. We've had a few presidents who were generals, like Washington, Grant, Eisenhower. And one was Andrew Jackson, and it was on this date in 1815, January 8, that he won a huge battle during the War of 1812, the Battle of New Orleans. In 1789, the French Revolution began, and the French will begin a decades-long war with England, and we will get sucked into that. And that's part of the context of the War of 1812. So Napoleon, pictured here, became the Emperor of France after the chaos of the Revolution. He's the archenemy of the English. But he overdoes it, and in 1812 he invades Russia. So you see the map in the upper right there, his route. So this is the context of the War of 1812, the major war between England and France and other European powers. So we initially wanted to be neutral. We wanted to trade with everybody. This map shows the French West Indies. We wanted to trade with the French, but the Brits didn't want us to because they were at war with France. That made us mad, but what really ticked us off was when the Brits would board our ships and take our sailors and force them to serve in the Royal Navy. This was called impressment. This really was a big deal. When Napoleon set up his trade zone, that's the red dotted line, to prevent Europeans from trading with England as economic war, we got caught up in that. And this is just another example of how the war in Europe affected us. But we did go to war with Britain eventually. Impressment was one of the big deals. This map shows where a lot of the fighting happened in the War of 1812. Much of it by the Great Lakes, and a lot of it on the Great Lakes themselves, but of course the land around it too. A famous event from the War of 1812 was when our boat, the Constitution, defeated an English ship and got the nickname Old Ironsides. So that's a War of 1812 story. We burned York on Lake Ontario in April of 1813. This is Toronto today, and England did not like that. They're going to get back at us for that later. Another great story of our naval history happens on June 1 when our ship, the Chesapeake, is losing and our captain, Lawrence, says, "Don't give up the ship." Great line of our Navy. A big win on Lake Erie is when Perry defeated the British, and his great line is, "We have met the enemy and they are ours." We weren't so good on land, though, and the English marched up through Chesapeake Bay, burned the buildings of our capital, partly to get back at us for burning York. That's in August of 1814. But unknown to most Americans, also in August, peace negotiations were starting to happen in Ghent, Belgium, pictured here. And those will go on for the rest of the calendar year. So back in the United States, the fighting is continuing. In September 1814, the British bombarded Fort McHenry in Baltimore Harbor. This is the background to the Star-Spangled Banner. And in November, England launched a naval attack on New Orleans that also had thousands of soldiers. They realized if they could capture the mouth of the Mississippi, this would damage our economy, and Andrew Jackson went down there with his men to get ready for that. But end of the year, Christmas Eve, 1814, the war ended. Peace treaty was signed. It was ratified by our Congress some months later. But the word didn't get to the U.S. in time, and on January 8th, the Battle of New Orleans happened. 5,700 Americans assaulted by 8,000 British soldiers in frontal assaults. We lose 13 dead. The British lose 300 dead, more or less. Huge loss for England, but the whole battle was really unnecessary. One soldier who fought in the War of 1812 was Winfield Scott. He fought in the war with Mexico, and he was head of the Army, the Northern Army, when the Civil War started. So he was one of the longest-serving soldiers in the history of our Army. A general to come out of the War of 1812 was William Henry Harrison, who was our 9th president for only a month, though. He died a month after being inaugurated, and perhaps the most famous general to come out of the War of 1812 was Andrew Jackson, our 7th president.